Before we begin this program today, we do want to provide a trigger warning that some of the details discussed may be emotionally difficult or disturbing for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. If you are seeking help, please refer to the following resources for aid listed in the description of this program. Thank you so much for listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our March 2023 IHC Podcast. My name is Wency Hong, and I am the Communications Coordinator for IHC. I will be the host for today's program. Our guest today on the line is our CEO, Sonya Tetnowski. Hi, Sonya.
Hi, Wency.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello. As stated, I'm Sonya Tetnowski. I'm also a citizen of the Makah Nation and CEO of the Indian Health Center of Santa Clara Valley, and I'm really excited to be with you today.
Awesome. We are so happy to have a very important conversation with you, Sonya, today. In honor of Women's History Month, we want to shine light on the empowering work you and others are doing to advocate for all Indigenous women. How long have you been working at the agency?
June will be my 9th year. I was fortunate enough to be invited down here by the board of directors. So I took some time to take tours of the agency, visit with the board, and had some time to talk to the department directors. Learned a lot about the programs here at IHC. I also believed I could help with the continued work in relationship to the mission of IHC.
You have absolutely been such a trailblazer in transforming the advocacy work for missing and murdered Indigenous women, or MMIW, during your tenure here at IHC. For folks who are tuning in who may not know about the work that you have been doing, could you please share with us some of those milestones that you've accomplished?
I need to start with acknowledging the others that have been working really hard on this: the Urban Indian Health Institute, the National Council of Urban Indian Health, the Sovereign Bodies Institute, and the Yurok tribe for the amazing work that they are all doing on this issue. As the president of the California Consortium of Urban Indian Health and National Council of Urban Indian Health, these positions really allowed me to be invited into many discussions around this issue. So none of us are really doing this hard work alone. It's a nationwide crisis and requires a nationwide response. With the Not Invisible Act and Savannah Act, which we advocated for, each passing, these pieces of legislation gave much needed attention to this issue. Here in California, we were able to get the Feather Alert legislation passed this last year, and it came into effect in January. Very excited about that. Really will help us here in California to know when one of our relatives has gone missing. I also was appointed to the commission. I'm a commissioner on the Not Invisible Act Commission. I've been able to work with advocates, trauma-informed practitioners, other nonprofits, as well as federal agencies, such as the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Bureau of Indian Affairs, investigators, tribal police, state patrol, and of course other agencies like SAMHSA, CDC, Department of Justice, and so many others. This commission is a 40-person commission working together on this issue. It has been a long and difficult road to get us to this point, but really appreciate the Secretary of Interior, Deb Haaland, for taking this issue on and personally committing to ensuring that progress is being made on this issue.
What are some of the challenges that you have faced?
There have been a lot of challenges. Some of the largest are jurisdiction, ensuring the right person has jurisdiction depending on where the individual was found, making sure that that information is going into a complex set of data, reporting systems, as well as some of the challenges around immediate response and support to the families. As we know, and in healthcare, that immediate response can really make a difference to those families as they're dealing with this type and level of trauma. The systems are really very complex. In order to protect the integrity of cases, very little is really shared with our families. And that makes it even harder because they don't know if progress is being made. Oftentimes, the individuals that have reported somebody missing have to tell their story over and over again. And really, that trauma of having to repeat themselves to more than one agency makes it really hard for them to get to a point where they are starting their healing journey. From a systems perspective, this complex set of systems really makes it difficult. Just in the information that I've received, there's over 17,000 law enforcement agencies and 9 federal database systems that house the information related to seeing murdered or trafficked individuals.
You all have shown resiliency and perseverance throughout your entire tenure. And so, where do you hope to see advocacy for MMIW and Indigenous women go in the future?
For me, I'd really like to see additional funding for tribal governments, other nonprofits, as well as urban Indian health organizations, so that we can adequately provide support to the families and survivors of this very, very traumatic event that had occurred in their lives. So ensuring that there's resources out there. Also, I'd like to see additional prevention funding, really investing in areas where we can provide that traditional healing as a covered service in conjunction with modern medicine. For many of our Native families, traditional healing is really the only thing that has really helped them move forward after the loss of a family member.
What keeps you motivated and inspired to keep persevering in this ongoing fight?
Well, the families, including my own, they keep me motivated and they inspire me to continue to advocate for them. Each person's story or case, as it were, is so important to hear and acknowledge the pain and suffering felt when we do not have good answers for them yet. These cases tend to take a long time, and so during that time frame, really just ensuring that people are not forgotten. That inspires me. The resiliency of our community inspires me, and the strength of our traditions inspire me, our traditions and culture. That really is what keeps me going.
You did talk a little bit about why you chose IHC earlier, but I'm really curious to know, why do you do the work that you do as a CEO, as an advocate, as all the roles that you are in? Like, you really do embody that a woman can be in so many different spaces and thrive. So I'm really curious to know, why do you do the work that you do?
That's a tough question. But really for so many different reasons. Short answer is, I'm here to be of service to my community. That really is the core of why I do what I do, really making sure that these issues are under consideration, being evaluated. And I feel like because I'm able to be in these spaces, being that voice at the table, I take a lot of personal responsibility with that. I don't take that trust lightly. Those are the things that really help me do what I do, is hearing from our community, learning about where we can provide more support for them, and then trying my best to figure out what avenues we can take to get those resources on the ground to our members, to our community. It really makes a difference, I think.
What aspect of your work are you most passionate about?
I would have to say our young people. One of the things that really concerns me is how many of our youth are in the foster care system and are experiencing all of these traumas throughout their time in the foster care system, especially if there are no family members who are tracking and monitoring and ensuring that they're still safe and okay. And that's true for all children who go into the system. And I'm not saying all foster families are bad, because they're absolutely not. But sometimes when our youth, even leave the foster care system, then they're also become vulnerable, which puts them at a higher risk for any one of these traumas that could happen, whether it's violence or they go missing. So the youth really are the ones who keep me passionate about this work, because I want our young leaders to be strong, happy, healthy, and in safe spaces.
Yes, it seems like you do this work to help the future generation to be able to tell the stories. How does your work impact your life personally?
Personally, it reminds me to be grateful. Be grateful each day for my children, for my family, for my grandchildren, and continue to have faith that this isn't something that they have to experience in their lifetime. I have lost family members through unsolved murders who have gone missing, and others who've been victims of other addictions. This drives me and reminds me why it's important to use my voice in this way.
Yes, and you continue to pave the path for not only this generation, but future generations through your work. So thank you so much for that. In honor of Women's History Month, and with your role being a CEO, as a trailblazer, as an advocate, but also, like you said, as a mother and as a grandmother, is there a woman in your life or women in your life who has empowered you or supported you in your journey that you would like to highlight or give a shout out to?
I would say my mother and my grandmother, who really ensured that we appreciated the culture that we were given. They still drive me today to make sure that I'm staying true to who I am and faithful to my culture and doing what is right for the communities. My mother and grandmother really instilled in me those values of respect, honesty, and love for the community, and that love for really being of service.
Are there any other information that you think listeners should be aware of? Perhaps anything that they can do to support this movement, to support this initiative, to ensure that MMIWs and just all women across the board who are facing violence are advocated for? Is there any way that they can join this resistance?
Absolutely. There are a lot of different ways. Here in San Jose, we have the Red Earth Women's Society, which I'm a part of. We continue to do advocacy work on behalf of MMTIP, and we also work to provide safe spaces for those at risk. At Indian Health Center, we've done several things. We have a wonderful counseling program, and we have an amazing team at our prevention department, and we have some amazing providers, medical and behavioral health providers. I want to take this opportunity to let everyone know that we have hearings that are going to be occurring in California in June in Northern California. We can share more information once that becomes available, but we want to hear from the families. We want to hear from other agencies as well as any of our survivors, to make sure that the information that the commission receives is true and accurate. The Department of Interior has a website dedicated to MMIP, and there are a lot of resources listed on there. There's also 1-800 lines for people to report someone missing. They work in conjunction with other jurisdictions to ensure that it gets routed to the right location. May 5th is MMIP Day of Recognition. And so throughout San Jose, we'll be having a lot of different events in conjunction with the libraries, the San Jose University, of course, us at Indian Health Center, and a variety of other organizations throughout the month to remind us that our relatives are still out there.
And Sonya, with regards to folks who want to find out a little bit more about the statistics and just the data evidence that supports these claims and just the magnitude of the work that still needs to be done, where can folks find this information?
You can search on the Centers for Disease Control. They use a database set that are extracting information from the National Vital Statistics System, the National Violent Death Reporting System, and the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey that really informs us about our missing, murdered, and trafficked individuals in our communities. These, again, are just 4 of the 9 major ones and 17 total databases out there collecting information related to our citizens and the cases around these members of our community. Part of the challenge that we continue to face is trying to ensure that when no duplication of effort is happening and information accuracy and updated information occurs between local reporting and then all the way through our federal system. As many of you know, there's been a lot of naming and renaming of this effort, including the Not Invisible Act. This piece of legislation, as I shared, gives us the 40-member commission to work on these issues. And this commission is a joint effort between the Department of Justice and the Department of Interior. But people get a little bit concerned when they see things written in so many different ways. But there's the Missing and Murdered Indigenous People, MMIP, or the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, MMIW, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, MMIWG, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit. So it's MMIWG2S. Missing, Murdered, and Trafficked Individuals, Indigenous People, MMTIP. This is a crisis that refers to the disproportionate amount of violence and abuse that occurs to Indigenous people in the United States. The third leading cause of death in American Indian and Alaska Native youth, 1 to 24 years old in 2020, was homicide. American Indian and Alaska Native males had a 3 times higher homicide rate compared to AIAN females.
From 2003 to 2018, according to the National Violent Death Reporting System, for 34 states and Washington, D.C., 1 in 2 American Indian homicide victims lived or were killed in metropolitan areas.
81.6% of men and 84.3% of women reported violence in their lifetime. 9,575 entries were made for American Indian and Alaska Native persons in the FBI's National Crime Information Center for missing persons in 2020 alone. 71% of all cases were American Indian Alaska Native people under the age of 21. 43.1% of all cases were females under the age of 18. 15.6% of those cases remain active at the end of 2020. Cases are reported as closed when the individual is located by law enforcement, returns home, or the case is determined to be invalid. It's the requirement of law enforcement to report cases of missing people under the age of 21 to NCIC, missing person file, but not the same for adults. That is why there is more data available on missing American Indian Alaska Native children compared to adults. From 2009 to 2018, there were 1,909 American Indian children reported missing with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. 86% were missing from foster care or group homes. It's important to note that not all Native American children that are missing or abducted are reported in NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Children that are missing from non-tribal territories had an average missing duration of 68 days. These facts are hard to hear, but we really have to recognize the fact that this is what's happening in our communities. And we need to continue to advocate on behalf of our families, work closely with law enforcement, and use our voice so that we can ensure that this does not continue through our next generation. In thinking about empowerment and the value of a women's circle that really inspires me, we as Indigenous women, we really want to be considered as part of the solution, because we have had the opportunity and have been blessed enough to receive information from those that came before us, that blazed their own trail to get us to today. There are so many people in this world who are working so hard around building knowledge bases, sustaining our youth. There's so many people in my circle, it would be hard to recognize all of them. But for me, this gives me that opportunity to say thank you. Thank you for taking time, sharing your knowledge, sharing space, and sharing stories that allow us to learn from each other. I'm blessed in that way. I've always felt like I had a solid support network, even through the hardest of times. I appreciate the opportunity to share that today. And for all the Indigenous women in my circle, I just want to say, Kleko, Kleko, Akshuyuk Schultz. I'm thanking you with honor.
Thank you so much, Sonya, for your sharing of the amazing women you work with. Do you have any message for future generations of women, particularly Indigenous women, who are wanting to contribute and continue with this fight for justice?
Always know you have that network, just like I knew I had a network. We're here to support you. There are amazing women throughout this county, throughout the state, and throughout the country who are there to provide that support and guidance. Never be afraid to ask a question, and always know that you're welcome within. Thank you so much for having me, and I was happy to be here.
Thank you so much to our very special guest, CEO Sonya Tetnowski, for joining us today. To stay updated with IHC on the plethora of programs as well as information to schedule appointments for care, check out our website at www.indianhealthcenter.org. Thank you for tuning in today in celebration of Women's History Month, and we will be back next month. Stay tuned for more. Bye now.